The conversation around Robert Morris is ongoing because this is an important subject. Welcome to my channel. If this is your first time, my name is Joanna Daniel. I'm a trauma-informed counselor and I live in the UK. I'm the founder of Wounds to Scars. We work with adult survivors of childhood trauma and women who experience abuse. So this conversation is what we do with Christian women who experience SA. So the conversation around Robert Morris is ongoing. I'm really happy about that. If you do not know who Robert Morris is, I'm going to link my last video below this video so you can learn some more about who he is. He is an evangelical pastor, the founder of Gateway Church, many viral sermons he's had. He's written, spoken worldwide, shepherded many churches and pastors, but all the time he had an allegation of CSA against him. This young woman, Cindy Clementshire, was only 12 years old when Robert Morris, a traveling pastor, stayed in her home at the kindness of her parents and go on to harm her. And so for many years later, she's been trying to be heard by the church. Many of Robert Morris's peers allegedly knew about this and did nothing. They kept promoting him, giving him more and more responsibilities, and elevating somebody with such a crime that he had committed. And so Advent Media Connect asked a really important question that I'm going to talk about today. And I'm really glad that Pastor James asked this question, because I don't know many ministers that are asking questions, especially men that are asking, what can we do? What can be done about this? Now, they did a really good job, I believe, of answering the question from a biblical perspective. I'm going to answer the question from many years, over 20 years of working with survivors, and some of the things that I've seen in churches, some of the ways that churches and ministers and ministries have dealt with allegations that would make men like Robert Morris get away with harming somebody for many years. And in the comment section of Pastor James's video, we're seeing people saying it's happening in my church. Somebody said it's happening in the Seventh-day Adventist church and the conferences are covering it up. It's happening in many churches, and many colleagues of these men know about it and are doing nothing about it. So let me play this video from Pastor James, this question that he's asking, really pivotal question. And then I'm going to answer this question for us. So let's get into this, playing this clip from Pastor James.
Who is Pastor Morris? Pastor Morris lives in Texas, Marshall, Texas. He's the founder of the Gateway Church, large multi-campus mega church in South Lake, Texas. Pastor Morris is a non-denominational in style. So his message actually went viral. He is respected among evangelicals. He is praised and loved by many others as well. But in this video, you're going to listen to the allegations that are against him, and he came out and actually pleaded guilty. So my question is, what can we learn from events like this? And what kind of counsel could we share with God's people as well?
I love that he asks, what can we learn from this? They share counsel, biblical counsel, that I think was great. I'm going to answer, what can we learn from this? And Pastor James, I think that was a really great question that you asked. What can we learn from these events that is going to help to hopefully shape how churches respond to allegations of abuse? So first thing that we can learn is accountability and responsibility. That is often missing when an allegation is made. Oftentimes, it feels like a pastor is untouchable. And unless the media or podcasters, press, oftentimes the church will not do anything. We've had many years, decades of allegations being made, and a pastor get moved from one church to the next church. nothing gets done. So what happens is that they pass the problem on from one congregation to the next because he repeats the pattern where he goes. So what can we do? We need to understand the church needs to protect victims and not minimize perpetrators' behavior, because that's who they are, perpetrators. Now, we don't know if there are any more allegations against Robert Morris to see if he'd ever done it again. What we do know from Cindy Clementshire is that the abuse for her went on for years. So we know that it's a behavior. And oftentimes the churches minimize behavior. So what can we learn? Don't minimize behaviors of perpetrators. When an allegation is made, big or small, if it's an allegation of misconduct, this needs to be taken seriously and dealt with seriously. There needs to be reformation. There needs to be healing, because men do this because they get away with it. People in leadership will do this because they will get away with it. And when they know that they're going to be, the group is going to come around them and protect them, then why stop? They feel untouchable. So that's one thing the church can do. What can we learn? Nobody is untouchable. If an allegation is made, it's dealt with, people are fired, people lose their position and no longer get to preach, no longer get the platform, no longer get to do what they were doing, no longer have access to vulnerable people. That's one thing that we can learn. So we need to learn lack of accountability in leadership structures. Oftentimes there's a lack of accountability among leaders. And for me, that speaks to the integrity of leaders. If they lack accountability, if they lack the ability to hold their peers accountable when an allegation is made, for me, that speaks to the integrity of leaders. We know that people who experience CSA or SA, the pain lasts the rest of their lives. We know healing is a journey that they have to walk daily sometimes. And I'm in the week 2 of an 8-week course right now where I write programs for Christian women who are healing from SA. And we know there are people of different ages that attend my courses. I've been running this for years. People of different ages, people disclose at different periods and times in their lives. It affects people in different ways. People oftentimes can't get married, struggle with intimacy, can't have relationships, struggle with leadership, struggle with God. Some people leave altogether. I think the church have a huge responsibility in holding perpetrators accountable and not minimizing when somebody gets disclosed. And oftentimes that's what happens. It gets minimized. Acknowledge that sometimes this leader needs help. They may have experienced their own trauma and is acting out of that. Not everybody who hurts other people, but some people who were hurt people. This is not an excuse, and it doesn't mean that they shouldn't be held responsible and somebody, hold them accountable. But it might mean that they need help. You may need to take your leader to deep therapy. They may need healing, because without healing, they will go on to do it again. So this leader may experience, and I don't know Robert Morris's story, but I'm answering the question from Pastor James. What can we learn? We can learn that sometimes hurt people sometimes. And men who are in leadership, and I'm saying men because mostly that's what the allegation is about, right? And so men in leadership is not exempt from early trauma. We know sometimes early trauma impacts us in different ways. This is one of the ways that it could impact us. This is one of the ways that it does impact. This is one of the ways that, these are one of the things that happen. And so sometimes people who experience SA becomes promiscuous in that way. And if we're doing it in adult consensual relationships, that are a very different thing than when we are doing it with, and we're harming people. Our coping strategy is harming somebody else. And so that's why the church have to take it really seriously, because the church is letting down everybody. They're letting down the victim and their families, and they're letting down the perpetrator who may need help and support, who will need help and support. But there's this fear around calling out perpetrators. There's this fear among the clergy of calling out each other, of holding each other responsible. You don't get to see oftentimes ministers preach and say, my colleague did this and it was wrong, and it's right that they are fired, and it's right that they are in prison, and it's right that they get help. My video on Robert Morris, there is somebody who commented that he was, they had biblical, they followed a biblical process, and Cindy Clemenshire changed and went to the legal system, and now he's in prison. And that was almost like a charge against this victim, that she should have followed the biblical process. And Robert Morris said sorry, and that was it. And everything should have been at rest then. But CSA is a crime. And so we can't huddle around people who have committed crimes. We have to let the due process takes its course, and for them to answer to the charge that they have done. Now, finally, after many, many years, Robert Morris plead guilty. But it took many years for Cindy Clemenshire is an adult. This happens when she was 12, and she disclosed, I think, in the 80s. And they've tried many years to do different things. It didn't have to get to the place where it get to. He could have pleaded guilty before, followed process, serve his time, acknowledge his wrong, validate her pain, and so it took that time. So that's what I wanted in terms of answering Pastor James's question. What can we learn? One of the other things that we can learn is about trauma-informed leadership. The world that we're living in, where more people are bold enough now to say, this happened to me, and this happened to me by a leader. The church more and more needs to train their leaders in trauma-informed care. People who are, when they hear an allegation like this, they don't need to, they can believe victims and activate systems and processes that is going to protect and care for the victim, so that they don't have to take it up on themselves. The church can be integritous enough to listen to victims, protect them, and follow the processes that is going to take their colleague through a process that might save them. This process might save their colleagues. So Pastor James, in answer to your question, will you be one of those pastors that are going to call your colleagues out? Will you be one of those pastors that will say, this is wrong and we will not cover it up? Will you be one of those pastors that will help to influence change? We don't have a lot of men in leadership talking about SA and calling out the church and advocating for victims. We do not have a lot of that happening. And so if you're going to be one of those men that says it, and this is not just a video that is done because of the news cycle, but because it's something that is a problem, that is an issue that really needs to be addressed, and that you can lend your support to a cause that is going to save a lot of people. Thank you for watching this video. Please do not forget to like and subscribe to our channel, and share this with a leader that is grappling with the question right now: what can the church learn from our experience with Robert Morris? Because there are going to be more disclosures. There are going to be more disclosures. There are going to be more churches faced with this question of what did you do? Leaders that are going to answer for questions of things that they've ignored for decades. And more people are going to be, and this is not for shame and purposes, but because justice have taken so long to be served, and the church have ignored victims for too long, and now people are having to go roots because of this, being disappointed with the church's response.